I try, but each time someone gets there before me. This man says to Jesus, I'm trying my best. To begin today's service, let's just turn to the people that you're here with and just say, I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. It's a good moment, isn't it? I think we've probably repaired some relationships there. But then he goes on to explain to Jesus his circumstances. You see, everybody sees my symptoms, but Jesus, let me explain to you the circumstances that I am in that lead me to be in this position. See, we all lie around this pool here, and we believe that when the waters are stirred, the first person, and only the first person, will receive a healing. You can see the problems, can't you? You can see the sad situation when a god-awful race begins. A race that favors the most able, the most assisted. Time and time again, somebody with a sore elbow will jump in and claim their healing and leave the rest of them to lie there stuck in hope. Jesus, in my circumstances, my symptoms are obvious, but please understand, I have no one. I am here all alone. And that is precisely why Jesus goes to this man. This man who could not access healing himself, this man who was isolated and most disadvantaged, most marginalized, that is where Jesus went with his message of healing and health and hope. That's what this series is about following the footsteps of Jesus as we look around this world for the places where there are those who are most in need, most needing our help. We as a church, we've been given an incredible message of health and healing. You all look like a blue zone out there, you do. But this series is encouraging us to follow the footsteps of Jesus with our health and our healing. And to open this series, I've asked a very good friend of mine and a hero of mine, Dr. Hart, to come and to share. Give him a round of applause as he comes. A man who has done his humble best to live in the ways of Jesus, to reflect on what it means to follow Jesus, and to share this message of health that we have to those most in need. Thank you.
It's good to be with you this morning. I want to talk about the miracles of Christ and who he chose to heal. The Bible tells us a few stories. We assume there's probably many more that we don't know about, that didn't stand out enough for the disciples to record them. But who did Christ choose to heal, and why? There are a few people that were in the upper echelons of society. We know that. Jairus' daughter, the nobleman's son, perhaps a water to wine at the wedding. But most of the people Christ healed were at the margins of society, the cast out, the ostracized. That seemed to be Jesus' specialty, was reaching out to those who had no one else. A wealthy donor has commissioned Nathan Green, a noted Adventist artist, to paint the 12 miracles of Christ for Loma Linda. 4 of them are done, hanging up in the grand hallway. I would encourage you all to go see them. You go from the old hospital, what we call the Hinshaw Towers, moving down the grand hallway, you can see the first 4 pictures. The first one is Jesus healing Jairus' daughter. We don't know what she died of. Seemed to be apparently healthy young girl that over a couple days died. probably pneumonia, perhaps in measles encephalitis, or some sort of an infectious process. Nathan Green went to the Middle East and spent a month visiting each of the sites where the miracles occurred, trying to capture the culture that was there, the setting that was there. And so you see Jesus sitting in this little room, Peter, James, and John standing watching, the parents apprehensive standing by the side as he took her hand, the pink of life flowing through her arms up to her face. Jairus' daughter. Next is healing the blind man, blind from birth. Probably congenital cataracts, we don't know for sure. Something we could take care of today, but no way back then. And here Jesus confronted one of the issues that we struggle with today. What caused this? Who is to blame? Something must have happened. Let's find that out. And the great question of life, the question we struggle with as health professionals is, okay, do I try to heal from lung cancer the guy who smoked all his life? Would Christ heal him? Or how about the heart attack who abused her life? Would Christ heal her? Is a victim of an accident more worthy than the drunk driver who caused it? Is a genetic deformity somehow more forgivable than an acquired habit? These are tough questions. And so as Jesus was confronted with the blind man, the Pharisees, of course, nailed him. Okay, who did it? Was it him or his dad, mother? Somebody must be to blame. And of course, Jesus sidestepped the question entirely. He says, I'm here to bless him. The next picture is a woman with a discharge. Probably uterine fibroids. We don't know for sure. We don't know how many people knew about it. It's not the sort of thing you talk about. Had been bleeding for 12 years. Touched the hem of Christ's garment and was healed. And then the paralytic coming through the roof. Had some friends, obviously, that helped him. Again, we don't know for cause for sure. As Nathan Green has portrayed the painting, it would appear to be a case of severe cerebral palsy. Still see it today. Difficult delivery, no C-section available, hypoxia at birth, causing cerebral palsy. I'm going to look forward to how Nathan portrays the rest of his paintings, the next 8 coming over the next several years. How about the demoniac? What was that? Paranoid schizophrenia? Perhaps. Who knows what he had? Feeding the 5,000? That should be a fun one to portray. So the question I want to struggle with today is, Christ specialized in the marginalized. Who would be his special subjects today? Where would he find them? And how would he treat them? And I'd like to suggest some categories that are probably the more invisible ones today, the ones we don't see as easily as a deformity of some kind. And yet I believe these are the very ones Christ would seek out. Behavioral disorders, autism spectrum, ADD, attention deficit disorder, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, they're probably not in church here today. They come in and pushed out to the side. They let me still see patients around here on Thursday morning at the Center for Health Promotion. And I sit in a little doctor's cubicle alongside Dr. Alan Darnell, the physician that covers most of our students here at Loma Linda Student Health Service. And so we talk. Alan has become a specialist in looking at these behavioral disorders among our students. And he says, man, we've got some brilliant students who are failing their tests because they can't focus. The forces in their life consume them that they can't make it through school. What do we do with them? Would Christ heal them? Another category, obesity shaming. How many of you walked through Stater Brothers and looked at the very obese lady there buying Cheetos, saying, come on, why can't you do something about your behavior? We now know that around 30% of Americans are obese, defined as 30% or more above ideal weight. A huge problem in this country. We also know there's many different causes of obesity. There's genetic causes, hormonal causes, environmental things, many different cases that do this. It's hard to put your finger on what the cause of something is. I was covering clinic a few years ago, back before the days of Ozempic and Wegovy, in our weight management clinic, and going through the patients one by one, encouraging them, planning out the next month's activities. The last lady came in and says, it was doing very well. I think she started off at around 300 pounds, was down to about 250, making good progress, outlined a plan, encouraged her. And as we were finishing, turned to me and says, Dr. Hart, sorry, got to drop out of the program. Can't take it anymore. And she obviously saw the puzzled look on my face. And no, she said, I can't do it. She says, let me tell you what happened. Last night I was downtown San Bernardino shopping, Central City Mall. My arms were full of packages. I started out of the store out towards the parking lot. It had gotten later than I realized. It was dark. As I started walking out across the parking lot, here comes a big old burly man walking right up towards me. There wasn't a thing I could do. There's no point in screaming. No one was around. There's no point in running. There wasn't a thing I could do. The one thought that went through my mind is, I'm glad I'm fat. He won't want me. And then went on to relate how indeed she'd been sexually abused by her stepdad as a kid. And her only way of dealing with her sexuality was her weight. Obesity shaming. Gender dysphoria. That's a tough one for this church. We know it by the more common name LGBTQI. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. And now we've added QI, queer and intersex. People that are not clear either in their minds or in their bodies exactly what gender they are. What do we deal with them? Push them out? Pull them in? When I was back in academy, a close friend of mine, we both got our pilot's license together as soon as we turned 16 and were eligible. Life went on. I got married, he got married, had kids, had families, had contact only intermittently. Then about 10 or 15 years ago, he called me. He said, Dick, can I come talk with you? I said, oh, absolutely. So he came. And I'll never forget sitting in a car here in a parking lot in Loma Linda. It was raining. The windows were fogging up. As he poured out his story. Hey, Dick, even as a little kid, I wanted to play with dolls, not with trucks. I wanted to dress in girls' clothes. I've stuffed it all these years. I've kept myself under control. I've married. I've had a family. I can't hold it any longer. It's going to explode inside me. What should I do? I can tell you at that response, Judy and my response was not one of, oh, don't, watch out, that's wrong. It was one of, let us throw our arms around you, him or her, and love you. Homelessness. See him all the time. The way I come to work in the morning, I have to stop at a stoplight in Mentone, right alongside a building that early morning sun where the homeless tend to gather. And I look over at them and try to understand, what is their background? It's hard to get the homeless to look you in the eye. They've been taught to avoid society. Probably not unlike the lepers in Jesus' day. Be going merrily through life, dealing with issues, find a spot on your skin, try to ignore it, doesn't go away, gradually gets worse. Finally share it with your spouse or others. Finally, you better go to the priest. Yeah, leprosy, dreaded diagnosis. You're out of here. Kicked out of family, kicked out of village, spend the rest of your life living on the roadside, begging for food. Many different causes of homelessness. Hard issue to deal with, yet it's one we struggle with. Addictions. I've got a lot of them today. Addictions used to mean alcohol and drugs, but now we recognize there's a whole host of things that people get addicted to. The things that give a dopamine rush that somehow compels people to do these behaviors. Gambling, pornography, sexual addictions, it's a whole bunch of them. I would suggest that many of us have some of those characteristics that we struggle with in our lives. Poverty. The difference between the haves and the have-nots. How do we deal with them? A few years ago, I was visiting with Marge Jaton, one of our centenarians here at Loma Linda. I think she was about 105 at that point in time. She said, Dick, the only good thing about being this age is you have no peer pressure. And yet our young people have a lot of peer pressure. And you go to our academies, you go to our grade schools, you see the haves and the have-nots and the impact it can have on individuals, whether inside or out. I was coming down off my Sabbath morning hike up Pisgah Peak a few years ago, and about halfway down bumped into an old friend from my grade school days. Hadn't seen her for years. So we chatted. Started recalling the wonderful time, the child incubator I grew up in, farm country, little 2-room church school, 25 students, all the wonderful things that I recall. Sledding, skiing, bicycles, camping, huckleberry picking. When I finally finished, I looked over and her eyes were down. I said, Dick, I'm sorry. I don't have those memories. That was one of the most painful times of my life. We were dirt poor. I didn't get a sled. I didn't have a bicycle. I was not part of the group. The impact of poverty can be rather incredible. And it's something that Christ would have dealt with. He faced. And finally, culture and race. Is this country ever going to get our arms around that? Who does this country belong to anyway? We crowded out the original owners. In my president's notes this week, I wrote about my own background. Great-great-grandfather jumped ship in Nova Scotia, became an illegal alien. That's my heritage. Is this my country? We struggle so much with trying to figure out the who's and who's not. How do we deal with that? And I just beg for the day when this country can throw its arms around people and say, we welcome you. We're all together. We're at a university. So one of the responsibilities we carry is, okay, how do I train students? How do I prepare the next generation of health professionals to understand these things, to try to encompass this in becoming a true health professional? It's not easy. We all come to school, we come to life with our own backgrounds, our own biases, our own perceptions. How do we break out of that cocoon? Those who achieve the grades and the excellence that Loma Linda requires often come from very sheltered environments. So we try to make programs that kind of force them out of their cocoon. SIMS, Students for International Mission Service. I have over 1,000 people that go every year someplace outside this country. And you realize, okay, who has the accident now? Who is the stranger? How do I understand you? Why do you live like that? Or locally in our own community, a program called CAPS, Community Academic Partners in Service. It takes our students into East San Bernardino. Run music programs for kids, health programs, nutrition programs. You know, it's easy for somebody to come to you and for us to give you information. But when we go to them, when we go visit them in their home, it tells a different story. A few years ago, we had a residency program back east, a faith-based residency program in family medicine that shut down. And a group of them applied to come here to Loma Linda. So we accepted them. They came to start the residency program, largely rotating down at SAC Health in our community clinic. Their first request is, if we're going to work here, we want to understand where our patients come from. We want to live in San Bernardino. And so they found a place to rent and live downtown San Bernardino. That's some of the most ghetto areas we have. They heard the gunfire at night. They saw the drug deals going down in their front yard. Heard the police sirens. And yet when that patient walked into them in the clinic, they could understand where they were coming from. So we try to do that. I like to use the word, we try to help our students confront human need. See it where it is, feel it, understand it, and in that process, create teachable moments where they are forced to break out of their culture, out of their crust, out of their cocoon, and say, here's what the rest of the world is like. That's the challenge of a university. That's the challenge of a Christian university. That's the challenge of Loma Linda, to continue the teaching and healing ministry of Jesus Christ. I want to close with one more story. This happened in a small town. Young family growing up, 2 girls and a boy. Went to church every Sabbath, doing everything right. And as the kids who gradually grew and matured, it became obvious that the youngest daughter was going to be one of those uniquely beautiful young women that turns heads. I have 3 daughters. There's nothing that makes a father more proud than having a beautiful daughter. There's nothing that makes a father more scared than having a beautiful daughter. And so the family watched, and then one day the unthinkable thing happened. The mother heard it first down at the market. Father heard it when he came in from the shop. Their daughter, their beautiful young daughter, had been caught in adultery. What do you do when that happens? What do you do as a family? What do you do as parents? What do you do as siblings? What do you do as a community? What do you do as a church? There was silence around the supper table that evening. No one knew what to say. Mom and Dad stayed awake all night long. What had we done wrong? What happened? How could this be? Our precious daughter. Over the next couple of days, they knew they had to talk about it, tried to get it out, share the experience, understand what was going on. She was very, very apologetic. Sorry, it's never happened again. I'm sorry I've embarrassed the family. I'll change. And then it happened again and again. And soon their daughter, their beautiful young daughter, became the village prostitute. What does the church do with that? By that time, she had given up on the church. They didn't understand her. Finally, the family decided maybe it was best for her to move somewhere else and try to start her life again. So she packed up her bags and headed down the road to stay with some distant relatives. Tried to say, I've got to change my life. I'm starting anew, got a job, settled in. And then gradually some visitors from her old town came by, recognized her. The old temptations returned, and she slipped back into a life of prostitution. She had totally given up on the church by now. There was no place for her in that church. One day she heard an itinerant preacher was coming to town. He didn't care what he had to say, but just was curious, watched the crowd. So he went down and stood on the edge of the crowd and listened to this guy talk. And it was there, in the city of Magdala, that Mary first met Jesus. And you know the story. The people who accused her were there. Jesus wrote in the sand. They quietly slipped away. It'd be nice if the story ended there, but the Bible tells us no. Jesus cast 7 demons out of Mary. So something was still going on. Something was still plaguing her life. We next find Mary at the party she wasn't invited to at Simon's house for Jesus, where she slipped in and anointed his feet with perfume. Simon looked across the room and said, this guy can't be a prophet. He has no idea this woman's background. And Jesus said, Simon, if one was given 50 denarii and another 500, who would love the most? We next see Jesus at the foot of the cross, ministering to Christ as he was dying. And finally, Sunday morning, the first one to the tomb. The stone was rolled back. She turned to the gardener, says, please, sir, tell us where you've put him. Taken his body. I want to anoint his body. And Jesus looked down at her and said, "Mary." And she recognized his voice. The older translations say, "Please don't touch me because I've not yet ascended to my Father." The newer translations are probably more accurate. It says, "Mary, please don't keep hanging on to me because I've not yet ascended to my Father." So we have a picture of Mary, the village prostitute, the demon-possessed woman, hanging on to the only person that she knew totally accepted and loved her. And then the most remarkable thing, Jesus chose Mary to be the first to announce to the world the most glorious news of all mankind, that he is risen. That's the kind of God I serve. That's the kind of Jesus I know. And that's the kind of Jesus I believe he would want each one of us to follow and be. Accepting, loving, including in each of our lives.